Well, the closing ceremonies of the Olympics are happening, so we thought we'd do our intro at the torch, but I guess the torch is not lit. So instead, um, we found this giant beaver here. So, welcome to week 139 of Misha Dianne Watch Santa Barbara. We've watched episode 673 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Monday, March 23rd, 1987.
Hello.
We saw Julia Campbell on Friends. We're watching season 7, I think, currently of Friends, and she showed up. Julia Campbell, of course, played Courtney Capwell, and as far as we know, is still hanging around the mansion somewhere.
Or she's gone back to Boston. We may never know.
We may never know. We don't know where Lily is. We don't know where Pearl's brother is. By the way, forgot to mention this last time, but Mason's apartment is on the 4th floor. It's room 412 when they were all out on the balcony in the previous episodes. That's where they are. So now we know. The police found a boot print outside Mason's apartment. Mason's apartment is 412. I already said that. Keith tries to get Victoria to tell him what exactly he said to the attacker that would make him stop. He thinks some of the other women that are being attacked might want to know, but of course she doesn't want to reveal that she's pregnant to Keith. And Mason says, "Well, you've told him enough." Victoria then gets concerned that Keith doesn't believe her and is going to assume that she was raped. And when they do finally announce their pregnancy, that Keith is going to assume that the rapist is the father. So she's gone down a rabbit hole of wondering what's going to happen already. Presumably the rapist will be caught at some point and will confirm that nothing happened there. Cruz gets a warrant to search Jake's apartment and sends his boots in for analysis to compare to those boot prints. Jake is at the airport trying to get a ticket out of town. The lady at the desk seemed to be delaying him a bit, so I feel like the police had already asked her not to sell any airline tickets to Jake, and Cruz appears behind Jake and arrests him. In Keith's office, Mason punches Jake, and Julia threatens a lawsuit for that. Then Mason blames Julia for the fact that Jake was free on bail to attack again, which she calls out as being preposterous. Cruz arrives with the knife in a plastic bag. It was also found at Mason and Julia's apartment, and he takes it into Johnny's to see if anyone recognizes it. Well, the bartender says that most of the stable hands around here carry those. Like that guy, what's his name? Jake?
I feel like if it is the bartender, which we have surmised as a possibility, then he's aware that Jake is a suspect and is perhaps been actively working to increase that assumption.
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm thinking. Now, there's in the credits today, Ken is listed as played by Randall Brady. I'm wondering if Ken is the bartender. I thought that one of the early appearances of a bartender at Johnny's that a name was given, but I don't remember it being Ken. I'll have to check my notes, but maybe it was a different actor. Just around the time Johnny's was being opened. Kelly arrives at the lab and announces that she's the new lab assistant. Jeffrey doesn't seem to recall advertising for a lab assistant and does everything to try and talk her out of it, including downplaying her skills to Dr. Nicholas. But Dr. Nicholas says that Kelly is welcome. But as soon as she leaves, he confirms to Jeffrey that he doesn't trust the Capwells at all. So he says that they both have something in common. They want to avenge the death of Pamela at the hands of the Capwells. He's not only got some secret agenda against the Capwells, he's got a open agenda against the Capwells, but he's only sharing it with Jeffrey at this time. Not clear how Pamela died or how the Capwells may have caused it. So that is a bit of a mystery.
It's also still a mystery who it was that was on the phone with Jeffrey all those episodes ago.
Mm-hmm.
I had sort of thought it might be Pamela, but apparently if you think she's dead, it wasn't.
Yeah, that is very odd. So there's something goofy going on here. So, which makes my bonkers theory that Dr. Nicholas is hypnotizing Jeffrey, kind of makes sense if really we don't know what's going on with Pamela. But as I don't remember any of this storyline, I would think I'd remember something as bonkers as that. Kelly takes part in an experiment that involves her getting increasingly drunk and answering a series of questions about driving habits. So that is played, I think, for comedy and flirtation for much of the episode, and it ends with her stumbling into Jeffrey's arms. And that's all that happened in this episode, and we have some big excitement in the credits. Sophia's last name is no longer going to be a source of contention. She is now listed solely as Sophia Capwell, as she is now once again married to Cece. So, if we ever see Pamela, I'm wondering what her last name will be. And of course, Ken Randall Brady. So those were the only two noteworthy things in the full cast credits. And that was it for a Monday episode. We will be back after we watch episode 675 of Santa Barbara. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
When I was at your parents' wedding reception, I had no idea that such a young, beautiful woman would have any interest in scientific pursuits.
Oh, no, she has a very wide range of interests. Everything from art to amoebas. They run the gamut from A to A.
Welcome back.
Hello.
We have finished episode 675 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Tuesday, March 24th, 1987. And after just a couple of weeks after seeing Peter Mark Richmond on To Catch a Thief, we saw Lloyd Bochner, CC Capwell number 1. So we'll see if Charles Bateman and Paul Burke make it on that show. Mm-hmm. Alice tells Brick she wishes she could go to college. She talks to the registrar, who tells her she'll need her transcripts, and she goes off about having taken some equivalency exam and then storms out. Now, I don't think the registrar was being all that obstructive at all. She was saying she wanted to see a copy of that equivalency exam, and then Alice took that as you don't have any credentials that you need, so you're not getting in. So I don't know if that's a good personality trait to have. Carolyn hears Alice tell Brick about that. She says she'll never get into college, let alone get a scholarship. And then Carolyn talks to the registrar herself, and the registrar says, "Oh, Carolyn, I didn't realize that was your daughter." And then the registrar calls back Alice to tell her there's a strong possibility she can get her in. So our earlier discussion about whether the USB is going to be having more scenes might be coming true, even though Ted and Haley haven't really ever gone to school in months.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's like here at all, but here you can often get into college as a mature student if you haven't taken a conventional path through high school. So I would think there would actually be lots of options for Alice.
Yeah, and she did say she did quite well in a lot of parts of that equivalency tests, and not as well in some, but that she showed overall good aptitude. So, I don't see why she's down on it just for no reason other than to have some conflict in that scene, I think. Now, Brick is a little annoyed when the police show up to ask him yet again about the night Haley was attacked. I believe Ken, the bartender, was in the background paying close attention to this scene. So we will see if Brick ends up on their radar if Jake's boots turn out to be the wrong size. Kelly has a hangover. Alex shows Jeffrey a film of what his experiment will do, and Jeffrey says it will change the world. This is a little bit heavy-handed, like all the magic inventions they have on Days of Our Lives that will change the world. And it's like, well, why wouldn't we see them in the real world then, if these are such world-changing things? But we have yet to have any clue as to what the magic formula is about. And Jeffrey spends the rest of the episode trying to hide that little bit of information from Kelly Capwell. And she, she's reading up on Dr. Nicholas, says, oh, it's great that we get to work with him, and tries to get information out of Jeffrey, going so far as to try to turn on the film projector when Jeffrey's out of the room, but Jeffrey stops her. We, of course, do not see the film. We just see them watching the film, so we have no idea what it's about. Then she tries to find out directly from Dr. Nicholas, and he says that he'll make sure she has a front row seat when he announces it, and wonders if she's as curious as her father. This is clearly a reference to something that happened in the past, which we will find out later in this episode. Kelly ends up snooping around some of Dr. Nicholas's papers and finds a letter from a university in New York that reveals that they offered him twice as much money to do his research there. So now she is suspicious as to why he would give up all that money just to come to Santa Barbara. I'm a little suspicious too, but
It all sounds a bit sinister.
Mm-hmm. Sophia and Cece spend their honeymoon in the presidential suite of, I assume, the Capwell Hotel, under the name of Mr. and Mrs. Bunbury. Dr. Nicholas runs into them at the Orient Express while they're having lunch, and Cece invites him over for a glass of champagne, although I don't really get the sense Cece really wanted to call him over, that he just kind of had to because he got spotted. But I think Cece may have had a secondary reason for calling him over, because they start talking about this business venture that he and Cece were involved in years ago, in which Dr. Nicholas lost his shirt. And Cece glosses over it by saying, oh, I'm sure you've more than recouped after all these years. Now, how about this new project you're involved in? And I'm just thinking that this is the Cece Capwell that will happily, steal a man's invention, I suspect. So I wonder if that is why Dr. Nicholas is being so secretive when Kelly Capwell's around, because he thinks, and probably rightfully, that the Capwells might just steal his invention and copyright it for themselves, whatever it may be. Then I also wonder if he could be playing the long game and have a fake invention that he wants them to steal so that they'll end up with egg on their face somehow. I don't know. Hopefully it won't take as long as Days of Our Lives is taking to reveal who's in the mysterious chamber that Dr. Rolfe has had in his lab since September. Hopefully we'll find out more about the invention soon. Maybe a little more about the failed business venture from years ago. And we'll find out who comes out ahead in the battle between Alex Nicholas and Cece Capwell. Minx! We finally see Minx again. It's her second last appearance in the form of Dame Judith Anderson. So nice to see Minx and Warren Lockridge number 2 share an episode together. Minx tells the family that since she's taken over the investments, she's lost almost all of their money. Oh no. She tells them that she was swindled.
Now, I'm a bit confused about the way money works on this show, because I still don't understand how Gina is suddenly not impoverished after being thrown out naked all of that, 2 years ago. And for a long time she was in a flea bag hotel, and then suddenly money wasn't a problem anymore. So I don't, maybe I missed something. But as for the Lockridges, I actually thought they'd lost all their money somehow.
Well, Cece took everything, right?
Yeah.
And then Lionel had some secret stocks hidden in the chimney or something. I don't know if Minx had squirreled something away before that, or if it's that Minx is investing. Plus, wasn't there $1 million ransom for Augusta? Where did that money end up?
Yeah, and didn't they have to do some kind of a little two-step, I think, involving Julia to even get the house back?
Yeah.
I remember. So
they got
I'm
some
very
money to buy the
confused.
house back, right? Because they got Pearl to buy it, in their name, but they actually had some money. So I don't know if that $1 million for Augusta's kidnapping ended up in their hands somehow that Cece put up. Can't quite remember. But yeah, I am a bit surprised that they even had much money to lose in the first place. And then they do talk about it all being relative. That, they're poor, but they're not broke. Or they're broke, but they're not poor. One of the two. But Minx thinks it's dire enough to sell a very expensive sapphire ring that T. MacDonald Lockridge gave her all those years ago. I think she gets $40,000 or $50,000 for it. And it's worth 10 times that. She says, there are more important things in life than a sliver of metal and polished stone. Lionel vows to buy it back for her. I don't know with what. Did I mention that Warren blames himself for putting the family in this situation? Which I guess is true, since they did lose everything to Cece, based on what Warren did. Lionel and Minx go to the beach, and as they look at the sea, Minx says that Warren was right. They should sell the yacht. So she's very upset with having lost all this money for the family. Warren tells Lionel and Jane that he's been looking for jobs outside of Santa Barbara. Warren gets a call from an old friend in Denver, Paul Mitchell, who offers him a job at a financial firm. Lionel remembers Paul Mitchell as a do-nothing hippie, apparently, but apparently Paul Mitchell has pulled himself up by his bootstraps. And things happen so quickly that Jane is shocked to find Warren with his bags packed, and they share one final kiss. So that came out of nowhere. After only 13 appearances, Scott Jenkins, Warren Lockridge, number 2, has left the show. But Warren Lockridge will return in episode 1746, July 1st, 1991, over 1,000 episodes from now. So clearly the writers have no idea what to do with Warren for the next 4 years.
Well, I would argue they actually never really knew what to do with Warren. Because he's had some, the first one had things to do and then he didn't, so.
Yeah, it's too bad, because the Lockridges are going the way of the Perkins family, really. So Jane's, once again, stuck without a love life. There's always Pearl. Any other singles in town right now that we even know about? There's that bartender at the Johnny's. I feel like he might be a bad choice. Just a guess, though. Yeah, so Jane will be pouty for a while, I guess. Alice is getting into school, so that's something. And the next Lakin will be showing up sometime this year, but I don't know if she'll actually make it before Minx leaves. We'll find out. That's it for this Tuesday episode. We've got one more character leaving before the end of the week, but we'll see what happens in episode 676 of Santa Barbara. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
We're still watching week 139 of Santa Barbara. Last night we watched episode 676, which originally aired Wednesday, March 25th, 1987. Now, we could either do the podcast here or wait till we get home. Do you remember anything that happened on the episode? Nope.
No.
I got to do my summary first. So we're going to go back home where it's nice and warm. Because once again, it's pouring rain. We decided to check out the opening ceremonies of the Paralympics. And luckily, they're going to run the torch for 2 hours. And we lucked out. All right, we'll see you when we're back home.
Welcome.
Hello?
As we said at the torch, we've watched episode 676 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Wednesday, March 25th, 1987. We just watched an episode of Lou Grant, and guess who played a clerk? Clint Howard, who, of course, has been playing Dr. Nicholas's lab assistant, and we'll be seeing him again this week, I believe. Mm-hmm. So I think that's our only Santa Barbara-related sighting we've had since the last recording. All right, on the show, Gina finds a naked woman in Keith's office. She says she's Keith's new secretary. And Gina tells her, he's got babies all over town. Little Keith is brought up by Gina. And she convinces her to file a sexual harassment suit against Keith. Then later, Gina agrees to testify on Keith's behalf in exchange for giving her job back in perpetuity. And just in case he doesn't quite want to live up to that, she has made copies of all of his secret files that he had in his locked bottom drawer with a list of all of his kickbacks and paybacks. So I think Gina is going to be the only woman in Keith's life, both at work and at home. This is, of course, the humorous storyline for the episode.
And in some ways, one of the least realistic, because I suspect this kind of position would be heavily unionized in real life.
I had not thought about that. Ted and Haley are arguing over the therapy session that they've just come from. I don't think this marriage is going to work out. Ted is then unhappy when he finds Victoria in their bedroom because she wanted to talk to Haley about the attacks. He really wants to keep it within the family, even though Victoria is in the family now. Cece and Sophia return from their honeymoon and promptly get back to taking sides against each other over Ted and Haley. And Haley finally decides she can't take it anymore and moves out of the mansion, and Gina wholeheartedly says that she can move in with her. So we have a more permanent move by Haley, I think, and Gina's living... Where's Gina living? Oh, she's living across the hall from someone. Jake? No. Who was it? Anyway, she's living across the hall from one of our other characters. Jeremy. What's his name? Jeremy? No. Jeffrey, that's right.
We're starting to mix up our days of our lives with Santa Barbara.
So now Gina and Haley are living across the hall from Jeffrey. So that's... it is like Days of Our Lives where everyone lives in the same building. I think this is going to, be a permanent wedge between Haley and Ted, I suspect. And I don't think it'll affect Gina much.
No, but we've been seeing the marriage between Ted and Haley kind of tail spinning for quite a while. So.
Mm-hmm. And if Jake is found innocent, really, Ted will be blaming himself for the whole thing. Maybe it'll be time for Lakin to come back by then. We'll see how Jake's life shakes out if he is found not to be the person responsible for the attacks. I mean, there's a Ted and Haley, or Jake and Haley, pairing, potentially, obviously. Cruz finds out from the staff at Johnny's that Jake was always leaving matchbooks from the Abernathy stables around, and any customer or staff member could easily have picked one up at any time. Keith, of course, doesn't think this proves anything. Then Keith is annoyed while in the middle of that discussion, Gina just hands Cruz the lab report on Jake's boots even though Keith hasn't seen it yet. And it shows that the boot prints do not match. So, yeah, we're starting to see some more evidence in the hands of the authorities that Jake may not have done this. We will see if anyone has a notch in their boot. Julia tells Cruz and Eden that she's about to start Lamaze classes, but she doesn't have a coach. And Eden volunteers Cruz to be her coach. They take place in room 215 at USB in the Student Union Common Room, apparently. So that's the university's being used for more things. So they build all little more sets related to the university. When they pick up their name tags, however, the camera zooms in on the table and we see the name Mason Capwell. Mason and Victoria have signed up for these same Lamaze classes. I figured that would be how they figure out each other's pregnant.
But not this episode.
But not this episode. Victoria tells Mason that she wants to announce her pregnancy. Mason says he wants to wait another week. Mason arrives at the Lamaze classes, only to be stopped at the door by the teacher, who says that Victoria called just beforehand and canceled. And Mason ends up staying in the hallway. And even though Julia rushes out to her car to get the check that she forgot in her glove compartment and comes back in due to some various shenanigans, Mason and Julia avoid spotting each other for this episode.
And I think in this little dance, we're also once again reminded that the Capwells do live in a fairly rarefied environment, because the point is made that Mason does not know his way around this university. He went to Harvard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the lady that is helping Mason find the room, and later that he helps put up some flyers, which distracts him from seeing Julia, asks if he went there. And he says no, he did not. So... just why Cece was so upset that Ted decided to go there.
Exactly, yeah. The fact that the likes of Alice can get in. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I wonder, I mean, she'd be just starting, so she wouldn't even have classes with Ted or Haley, who are in there. Ted's in the second year, I guess. Between all the incarcerations and detours, I don't know how much schooling Ted's actually managed to get. I don't know what Haley's even taken. And presumably Jane is also still attending classes, even though she's not working at the radio station anymore. Or is she still working there? Maybe she's the only one who still is working there. Julia tells Eden that her life hasn't quite worked out the way she had always expected. She tells a tale of some guy she dated when she was 17 that didn't work out. And then she says that she had a chance to make things go the way she wanted, but she just froze. I think this is referring to that time she almost told Mason she was pregnant just before he ended up with Victoria instead. Julia drops off some papers at Mason's and finds that Victoria, who answers the door, has just had a nightmare and asks Julia to stay and keep her company until Mason gets home. Of course, she had a nightmare about the attack. When Mason gets home, he throws some barbs at Julia, and Julia tells Mason that the boot prints didn't match, and he says, well, what does that prove? She says, well, it proves that I might have been right about Jake. Victoria later tells Mason that he should be nicer to Julia.
And I was kind of worried about Julia all through this part of the episode, because I thought, well, what if they show her walking out to her car and getting attacked? So
oh, that's right.
That didn't happen, but remember, we've still got someone out there.
Mm-hmm. And there's still a whole bunch of people who could be attacked. Well, who have we got? Alice, Jane, Sophia, Julia, as you say.
And, we should mention that the reason why Tori does cancel her appointment, she has a long chat with Haley, and they're trying to figure out what she said right to get him off of her. Mm-hmm. And, Haley's really struggling, of course, with what could she have done to avoid being attacked. So we're starting to, the characters are kind of trying to figure out a little more the psychology of the attacker.
Because really, Haley does already know Victoria's pregnant, right?
Yeah.
She and Ted were the first to figure it out. She's one of the few people that Victoria can talk to about it, and definitely one of the few people who has been through the same thing. So. Eden asks Cruz to marry her, yet again, and Cruz accepts the proposal, and they talk about having a baby. I feel like Cruz being in that same Lamaze class with Victoria could end up perhaps someday when both Mason and Julia are working late on a very important case that somehow Cruz ends up as Victoria's Lamaze coach for one episode. And this could lead to some awkwardness. I feel like this Victoria baby is going to be the next fly in the ointment for the Cruz and Eden wedding. Not going off as planned, I suspect. So
Yeah, we have four kind of, we've got 5 actual interlocking possibilities, because we've got Eden and Julia and Victoria all kind of in the same orbit as Cruz and Mason. So could go a lot of different ways.
yeah, it might be. I mean, we've got that champagne from our honeymoon that we never drank that we've been saving to open for Cruz and Eden's wedding. So I don't know if we'll make it to our 25th anniversary before we actually open that champagne. I think there'll be a race between whether that happens before Cruz and Eden's wedding.
All we know for sure is that Eden and Mason will not end up together.
That's true. And then, with our other... maybe it's a little too early to talk about that, but later in the week, there's another relationship change that happens this week unexpectedly. So I'll talk about that when it happens. I think it's this week. It's either this week or next week. So, but we've got, we're going to be seeing, I think Clint Howard will show up again in the next episode. So we'll talk about him a little bit when we watch episode 677 of Santa Barbara. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
Welcome back.
Hello.
We finished episode 677 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Thursday, March 26th, 1987. Gina pretends to be watering plants in Keith's office. She hears Julia tell Mason and Keith that evidence keeps piling up that Jake is innocent. Keith kicks Gina out of the office, but she manages to switch on the intercom on her way out so she can keep listening. Gina says even Perry Mason listened to Della Street. Gina listens in as Julia says that someone at Johnny's could have picked up that Bowie knife and the matches, and that the boot prints don't match Jake. Gina goes to Johnny's and questions Ken, the bartender. She tells him those boot prints didn't match, and she tells him that she's Haley's aunt. And he says that Jake and Brick had a fight that night, and that Brick was angry with Haley again over what had happened to Amy. So now Gina has a suspect in mind. She tells Brick she wants to know everything that happened that night. Brick says, "Why don't you come out and say what you want to say?" And he gets distracted by something Gus needs, and then when he turns around, Gina has gone. And Gina decides to go wandering in the fog on the boardwalk along the beach. And we hear cowboy boots approaching. And when she turns around, it's Brick! He has cowboy boots too. Brick tells her he could never do to another human being what happened to Haley, and if you tell anyone again that I could commit such a horrible act, you'll wish you were back on those islands.
Now, I feel like issuing a threat to Gina when she is maintaining he is a threat is maybe a bit of a counter. It's a bit counter to his own interests, I would say.
I feel like he doesn't think it's a huge thing because, he's already sent her packing once. I think he feels like he can handle her, but, he hasn't ever been the brunt of the full Gina Capwell.
No, and of course we have been theorizing that perhaps the bartender is really the main suspect. So if he is, he's managed to put two suspects in the mix just by, sort of spreading this rumor.
And if those are his boots, perhaps he might try to throw them into the Abernathy stables or somehow frame one of the other two suspects. At Johnny's, Ken the bartender is reading a newspaper, and Brick is yelling at someone over the phone. He's got business troubles. So, I don't know if Johnny's might not be a financial success, or it could just be some supply chain issues he's having. So, but gives Brick a reason to be angry, I think. Gina sneaks into the Perkins house, which we have not seen in months. And she looks in the closet and finds a pair of cowboy boots. So not the ones Brick's currently wearing. Perhaps the bartender hid those in Brick's house, or Brick has two pairs of cowboy boots. She hears Brick come home and call out for Marissa and Johnny. Well, we know we're never going to see Marissa again, but perhaps we'll see Johnny in the next episode. I just want to add this one thing that I forgot. Brick asks Gina how the Galapagos Islands were. He tells her the wedding was great after she left. Lionel tells the woman at USB that he wishes he could afford to pay for Alice's schooling, but she tells him that Carolyn has already arranged for financial aid for Alice. Lionel tells Carolyn he's found out that she arranged for everything for Alice. Then they run into Alice, and Carolyn gives her a map that she found very helpful in getting around USB. Lionel talks to Gus about what Carolyn's doing to help Alice. Alice tells Gus she doesn't know what to major in. Gus tells Alice that Carolyn was the one who arranged everything at USB. Clint Howard returns as Marshall. Jeffrey has him hooked up to electric wires, and he says he'd rather be hooked up to that blonde girl that hangs around here quite a bit. Kelly is actually spying on Jeffrey from around the corner, and she walks in, and Dr. Nicholas offers to show her some of the slides he's been working on. Jeffrey wants to know why he trusts her so much, and he says, "I don't believe in blaming the child for the father. She reminds me of my daughter Elena. I don't dislike all the Capwells just because they're Capwells. And if I did, I certainly wouldn't go out of my way to let you or anyone else know." He winks at Jeffrey. So, that's kind of an interesting addition to this. It really seems like Alex has this secret plan to defeat the Capwells, and it's just inching slowly towards it. So hopefully, he won't get his new thing stolen by Cece. Maybe I feel like maybe this is part of his plan. I don't know. Alex shows Kelly the slides and tells her that the work they're doing makes the common cold cure look like falling off a log. Moments later, after having been sworn to secrecy, Jeffrey finds Kelly on the phone with Cece, telling him all about it. Literally the worst thing that could happen. And she just literally has no clue why Jeffrey would be angry about this. Jeffrey fires her, but Alex returns and says he overreacted, rehired Kelly. Jeffrey says why, and Alex says, "You'll learn one day. When you get along with someone, when they learn to trust you, you have infinitely more power over them."
It's creepy.
Then they discuss, Jeffrey's situation with, being in love with Kelly and also hating Mason. And he says, "I'm not sure if I'm staying in town because of Kelly or because of Mason." So, he still has some plan to do with Mason that he hasn't fully enacted. So I hope that moves forward a little more quicker, because it's been dragging out a bit.
Yeah, and he's also very much motivated by what he thinks to be his mother's death, which I don't think it will turn out she is dead, but he seems to have equal parts hatred for Mason and revenge for his mom.
Also, Kelly gave him a short timeline to tell Mason that his mother is dead, and it's been a few days since the wedding, because when Sophia and Cece came back, they said it was 3 days, so I think Kelly's patience is going to wear thin with Jeffrey, especially with him firing her constantly.
Yeah, I mean, I like this new feistier version of Kelly. I think if she was kind of more the way she was a little more docile and fragile, then Jeffrey's constant nagging would be a bit more disturbing rather than just part of their repertoire.
I'm pretty sure Robin Wright is happy for this new version of Kelly that she gets to play, since it's been said that she had a 3-year contract originally with Santa Barbara, and when she asked to be let out for a while to record The Princess Bride, they said only on the condition that you extend your contract. So now I can certainly see, after having, tasted, the acting in a big movie, that she probably wouldn't want to hang around Santa Barbara past her 3 years, but now she's kind of being forced to.
However, I would say The Princess Bride was worth it. So.
Yeah. Julia is present when Mason receives a threatening letter. And Mason says he gets them all the time and just ignores them. But Kelly shows up, and Julia shows the note to her. And the note is signed, "Your sworn enemy." Before they know it, Kelly has vanished. Well, I think we know who she suspects of being Mason's sworn enemy. Julia is more concerned about it, though, and she secretly hires some extra security to watch Mason. I don't know if this... I don't know what this threat is. I feel like it's not Jeffrey. So it'd be interesting if this security actually saves Mason from something, or if the security guard will spot something completely unrelated that Julia doesn't know about, and Julia will be let in on something. I don't know what it could be, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see what this guy following Mason actually leads to.
Yeah, I feel like it's something that could be tied in with some of our other plot lines, possibly our plot line with Jeffrey, which of course is what Kelly suspects. Or it could be tied in with the Jake case, maybe? I don't know, the rapist case. Or it could even be something completely new. Or it could be a way somehow where Mason and Julia get closer together.
Yeah, something I don't recall. So maybe it's just going to be a short thing, or maybe it'll lead to something. Kelly, of course, goes to Jeffrey and accuses him of writing the letter to Mason, and he promptly hands her, a book of his notes to compare the handwriting. So, yeah, I don't know if she'll believe that or what. We'll see what happens in the next episode with that. So this was Clint Howard's final appearance on Santa Barbara. We have seen the last of Marshall. So that was fun. We actually saw Clint Howard on something else yesterday. What was that? I can't remember.
I want to say it was one of our... we watch so many old programs.
Maybe we actually did mention it yesterday that we'd seen him. Yeah, so whatever we said yesterday, that's what it was.
But he has such a rich movie and TV career. Like, he guest stars on a lot of stuff. So I'm sure we will discuss seeing him again.
Yep, and we've got one other person leaving soon. Piano furnished by Schaefer & Sons. So I think we'll be seeing that piano again this week, because I don't think we've seen it since the last time they mentioned that. So they probably have to do it once a week when they're getting a free piano. That's it for episode 677. And tomorrow's Friday, so maybe we'll have a nice little Cliffhanger with one of our storylines. I'm banking on the Brick storyline, maybe, or the Jake storyline, whatever the storyline is. I think that may have another twist to it this Friday episode. So we'll see. Maybe it's the Alex storyline. Maybe we'll be surprised, but
maybe someone will just be randomly pushed off a cliff.
it could happen. We'll be back after we watch episode 678 of Santa Barbara. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
Welcome back.
Hello.
We finished episode 678 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Friday, March 27th, 1987. Cruz and Eden have a nice time together until they remember that tonight is the second Lamaze class. I get a feeling that Lamaze class is going to be the scene of some hijinks soon. Gina finds a notch in the left heel of the boots that she found in Brick's cupboard at the Perkins house. Brick comes home, but Gina manages to sneak out, and we never see Johnny or Marissa. Gina has Jake brought into Keith's office to question him about how many pairs of boots he owns. He says 1, and then Keith arrives and is livid that she has called in a prisoner without him authorizing it. So clearly using her role as Keith's secretary to trick whoever is in charge of the prison into bringing Jake up to see her. She tells Keith she's found the real rapist, but he doesn't want to listen. So she calls in an anonymous tip. Back at the Perkins house, Brick and Santana are dancing. Nice to see them together, having this relationship that we've only ever just suspected. They talk about the fact that they haven't been intimate because Brick just hasn't been ready. And Santana says she's fine waiting. But then the police arrive with Cruz and a warrant to search the house. And they find the boots, and Cruz has no choice but to arrest Brick. Santana insists to Julia and Mason that Brick is innocent. Mason and Julia are both anxious to leave because they each have an appointment in 30 minutes. Neither of them wants to tell the other what it is. Brick tells Keith and Cruz and Eden for some reason that he hasn't worn those boots in over 2 years and that someone must have stolen the boots and then returned them afterwards, which even Cruz does not find a likely story. Cruz has no choice but to take him down to be booked. Brick had also said, what was it? He said something else. I can't remember what it was. When they were questioning about that night or something. Cruz questions Haley about whether Brick could be the attacker, but she does not think it was Brick. Keith is suspicious that Gina seems to know more about the case than she should, and he is livid when he realizes that Gina is the one who called in the anonymous tip. He doesn't seem to be too worried about the possibility that it might appear that Gina planted the boots, if this all came out in court. Certainly that's what Brick's defense would say, that the chain of custody of these boots is very suspicious. Gina, however, wonders how grateful Jake will be that she has managed to get him not to be the primary suspect anymore. I got a feeling Jake's not going to be that interested in sticking around Santa Barbara and certainly not dating Gina.
No, I think Haley might still be an option if her relationship with Ted continues to go downhill, but Gina, no.
No. Aaron. Who's Aaron? Oh, Sharon. Sorry, I'm still not using my hands to type. I'm still using the voice option, and there's some surprising mistranslations. Sharon takes Haley back to the beach so she can overcome her fear of the place where she was attacked. This didn't seem unreasonable to me, but what did surprise me is that they did it at night. You'd think you'd ease into it with a daytime visit in the bright sunlight. I didn't actually have the sense that it was nighttime for most of the episode. Just obviously the Lamaze class is going to be at night, but yeah, because a lot of stuff seems to happen, and it's still night. At Johnny's, Ted is surprised to hear that they suspect Brick. Ted and Eden tell Haley about Brick, and then Haley tells Ted that Sharon really helped her today and explains that she could help. She could help Haley where Ted couldn't, because Ted is actually a victim too, which they kind of had talked about in a previous episode, that, he's been affected by this as well. And then Haley tells Ted she doesn't want to live in the mansion anymore. And Ted says that he should have insisted they get a place of their own from the beginning. So this makes it sound like they are thinking of moving in together in another location. So I guess their marriage isn't as collapsed as I had thought it was in the last episode. But it's been a lot of ups and downs lately. And then Jake agrees to do therapy with her. Sorry, not Jake. Ted. Ted agrees to do therapy with her. I said Jake because Jake walks in right around that time and walks right over to them. And Ted says, "There's not much I can say." And Jake says, "Damn right there isn't. One day we can call it even." So Jake seems surprisingly not angry with Ted about this. He kind of agrees that Ted also, had a bad time of it as a result of the attack. So, yeah, that's interesting. I'm wondering what Jake will do now, assuming, Brick doesn't find an ironclad alibi, and there's also the thing of the boot sizes. Like, is this boot anywhere near Jake's size, too? They never much talked about the boot sizes, more just about that notch in the boot, but surely that's part of it. Mason finds out that Julia has hired a security firm to follow him, which of course he's very upset by. He's actually told by the guy that he's hired to watch out for him and Victoria. So, yeah. But the fact that this is revealed at the apartment means that Victoria finds out about it, and he has to explain to her that it's because he got a threatening letter, which she's not too happy about. And it's Lamaze time! Victoria and Mason arrive at their first Lamaze class and set up their mat near the back. Cruz, Eden, for some reason, and Julia arrive, and they set up their mat at the front. And as they're all getting themselves comfortable on the floor, Cruz locks eyes with Victoria, and Eden and Julia lock eyes with Mason.
Now, I suspect, since, as you say, Eden is mysteriously accompanying them, that they will quickly pretend it's Eden and Cruz having the baby, not Julia.
Yeah, it did surprise me Eden just tagged along, because they hadn't really talked about that earlier in the episode, I don't think. They just talked about making sure Cruz gets ready. Interestingly enough, all the stuff with Jake and Brick happened in between that. Oh, we got to get to the Lamaze tonight, and it's Lamaze time. So this episode must have been logistically a bit of a thing for the writers, because Cruz is in all these stories and has to be in different parts of the city in the correct sequence. Plus, there are people at Johnny's, with Jake and Haley and Ted having to interact with Eden at the correct time. So this must have been a bit of a puzzle to put this episode together, so everything comes together, and maybe that's why it just seemed weird that it's nighttime the whole time, because a lot happened in apparently a very short number of hours.
Yeah, I noticed that with some of the modern soap operas you like too. Like I think the last episode of Days of Our Lives, we had a character who was talking to someone in a house, and then the very next scene she was in a coffee shop. So, time works a little differently in soap operas, I think, just as ages do.
Mm-hmm. We have a character on Days of Our Lives who we last saw on Thursday, who I think was about 9 years old, and next week she's going to be 13, so that'll be quite a shift. I don't think anyone was ever aged up on Santa Barbara. I think the only differences are occasionally people's birthdays jumped, like Cece's was in November. I think it's like in March or something in another episode. And that the ages of Channing and several of Cece's kids were shifted by only like 2 or 3 years, just because when the show first aired, they were trying to get the timeline to sync up with the late 60s stuff of, Sophia being an actress and whatever. And then I think they adjusted it by a few years as time went on. But that was about it. I think none of the kids ever age up. Brandon just ages normally the whole run of the show. And I think he's, basically the only kid. I think there's a few babies born, but they don't get noticeably old enough to have any lines, I think, by the time the show ends. So, this will be, I guess we'll start with the fallout of that. But, even if Cruz needn't pretend that their baby, Victoria's baby, is also an important reveal, because that's going to get Eden thinking right away.
Yeah. Now, if I'm correct, and there is a little bit of a ruse here, I don't think it can be a very long-lasting one because, let's face it, a pregnancy is not going to be a secret for that long.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, there's really more of the mathematics gets involved when the baby's born and Eden starts subtracting dates from each other and thinking, wow, that's a very, very early baby you guys are having, Mason.
Yeah.
That's it for this episode and this week. We had some credits, not the cast credits, but we had the Joanna Gallers and Schaefer and Sons had their credit in this episode. And it may surprise you to know that this was the last appearance of someone on the show for a very long time. Someone that was in this episode is not going to appear again until episode 1335, November 15th, 1989, 2 years and 7.5 months from now.
Wow.
Any ideas who that could be?
No, you often ask me to guess these things, and
It's one of these 12 people that we saw today. And it's not Sharon. Okay, that is it for week 139. We don't have any fancy burning torches scheduled for next week. It'll just be done in our apartment. Once again, it's been 3 weeks between episodes because with my wrist injuries, I've been slower in getting the translations done and everything. But hopefully we'll get on schedule again soon. But we're recording this Saturday morning, and I'm hoping to post this sometime today. It's March 14th. So anyway, hope you don't mind waiting 3 weeks between episodes for a couple of times. I don't have any backlog of special episodes to put in either. Otherwise, I'd slot in a visit to the cemetery, which we're still owed for Amy. And, of course, we should do a spotlight on Scott Jenkins now that Warren number 2 has finished his run. Maybe I'll try and whip those together so I can fill in on those weeks when we're delayed with the main episode. Okay, thanks for joining us for week 139. We'll be back in 2 or 3 weeks for week 140. Misha and Dianne watch Santa Barbara. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
You made this stone for me. You know how much my husband paid for it.
That was a long time ago. The setting is old-fashioned now. I have to completely reset it. Sapphires are a glut on the market these days. 30 is the best I can do.
Well, I can't afford to argue. I'll take it.
I hate to see you part with it, Minx. I know what that ring has meant to you.
There are more important things in life than a sliver of metal and a polished stone.